So, Mr. James Topp, James Topp.
Yeah.
So who are you and what are you doing?
I am a Canadian citizen. I'm a soldier. Protesting. I was placed on leave without pay from my job with my civilian job with the RCMP. Back in the middle of November, I had transitioned from the regular army to the reserves in 2019. So I still am in the reserves until they release me under item 5F. And that's all due. All this is based on the fact that I refused certain procedure. I didn't feel it was ethical or lawful. And here we are. So I had both of these things happen to me in basically one after the other, and it was devastating to me personally because where I was working as a civilian, like I said, with the RCMP as a facility manager in Chilliwack, British Columbia, and it was an excellent job for somebody like me. Like I was a range manager. I'm familiar with all of the things that have to happen as a lifetime after having spent a lifetime in the armed forces as a infantry NCO and soldier. This was all nothing new to me, and it was good shift work. Worked with a lot of professional guys, and I was really happy there. I really liked that job. So that was taken away, right? And then I had the armed forces tell me that they're going to release me on an item 5F. So just to clarify, this is typically it's. You may be familiar of the term like dishonorable discharge. It's not quite as severe as that, but it's definitely not something that you want put on your record. Right? Number one, you can't re-enroll with a 5F, and number two, I don't think I deserve that particular release code. It basically says that you have an unwillingness or inability to change a certain type of behavior, and so they're telling me the behavior is something that I'm refusing a chief of defense staff order about this procedure that I feel is unethical and unlawful, and that's considered a bad behavior.
Yes.
I was floored, right? So from there, I went wallowed in self-pity for a while. I got a job as a tow truck driver in Hope, British Columbia, where I live. And I just came to the realization that basically after having spent a lifetime in the service of the federal government, I didn't actually work for the federal government. I worked for the people of Canada. That was what I came to the realization, because I had spent all this time in the armed forces. The armed forces gets their money from tax-paying citizens, right? And then I had that realization, and then I was encouraged to see what was happening with the Freedom movement on the truckers convoy to Ottawa. It showed me that there was actually people that were similar in my similar condition, or I should not condition, situation. And they had banded together to do something, right? To try to make a stand and make the government listen to them, or that these policies that they have adopted were toxic and harmful, and they tried to make their voices heard. Subsequently were ignored and insulted. So that was something I didn't think I could stand for, and I felt like I had to do something, and I was encouraged by them taking a stand, right? And then I knew that I had to show some sort of, I had thought, okay, well, why don't I go to Ottawa? But then at the same time I was like, well, I can't get on an airplane anyway to go there. And if I was going to drive there, why don't I just, make my own kind of statement in the way that I knew how to do, right? So that's what I did. I made the decision. I wore my uniform out in public. I made a video in uniform because it was my intent to, number one, kind of get attention. Number two, kind of set an example, because I know that most of the people that I spoke to, both in the RCMP and the guys I was still in touch with in the armed forces, there was a lot of bullying and coercion going on with this procedure, and a lot of them just accepted it. I can't say all of them, but and this is anecdotal, right? I don't have numbers, but this is what I came to realize was that they were doing it just so that they could maintain their employment. So there was this false construct built up around, the choices and the consequences, and they had to accept, they had to undergo this procedure so that they could keep their jobs, basically, or their positions, or the tenure, or whatever, right? And I just felt it was time to do something that I could do. My number one, protest. Number two, speak on their behalf. Number three, speak on the behalf of those people like me who lost their jobs and employment. So that's the three main things that we're trying to do here. And then I met a bunch of folks on the way, like Christian, Jeremy. I met like 2 days after I put the video out. And like I said, the reason why I went on the like social media platforms and sought out a reporter in full uniform, because it was my intent to kind of show that even though you are in these organizations, that you still have a voice, you still have a right to ask questions, you have a right to stand up for yourself. And then that's how it panned out. Like I put the video out, stated my intention, met a bunch of people who supported me, like through helping me build a website, getting my act together on social media as part of like this thing, the website I started with Canada Marches. And it just snowballed from there. Like, I mean, I have to say I was really not prepared for the amount of support that I was going to get. It's really something remarkable. And I'm not the type of person, like I was the type of person that was going to go live in the woods. And for me to be doing this stuff is like, it's still kind of uncomfortable in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's just like, I'm experiencing this really weird feeling, which is the opposite of depression, and it's happiness, right? Which I don't think I've experienced probably in a long time. So here we are. And so far we left Vancouver. Like, Jeremy's been with me even before we stepped off from Vancouver on the 20th. I met Christian on the 20th of February at the Terry Fox Memorial, because that's where I stated my intention with the march from Vancouver to Ottawa, go to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That's my legacy. It was desecrated as far as I'm concerned in January. Reclaim that, and then a lot of this stuff is kind of done instinctually. And then, we developed a plan, over the last 35 days, right? So we're, like I said, I had these three stated intentions: protest and speak for the voiceless and speak for the affected. But now we've determined, okay, so what is our plan when we get to Ottawa? Like, we're not just going to go there and have a tantrum and scream at people. There's a purpose to this, and that's going to be to. We are in the process right now. We just printed up a bunch of letters to every single member of Parliament. Whoa. And I'm going to sign them, probably 10 or 20 or as many as I can a day, and then we're going to start mailing them out, because this is where it really comes down to they need to have something in their hands. This can't be a campaign of like button clicking. So that's part of the plan there. And then we get to Ottawa. We're in touch with a bunch of people who were doing the business there in January, namely the experts such as doctors, nurses, and other professionals who were pushed to the sidelines and censored and silenced, and bring them back and engage in a real conversation with our members of Parliament, with our government, because as far as I'm concerned, they've forgotten who they work for.
Thanks for all that. I understand you're limited with time here, so if there's any details or whatever, maybe we can get in touch with Christian or anyone else after the fact for some of those details. But I guess, how far have you come, and how's it been like on the road?
Like I said, it's been, I don't know, how far is it from here to the Terry Fox Memorial?
Right.
All right, let's check it out.
Sure.
So it's 885 kilometers.
Mm.
And that's the walking route, but I mean, we took the driving route, which is actually 937.
So 937 kilometers in about a bit over a month.
35 days.
35 days.
Yeah, and then we had a day off. You know, like we have.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we take a day off here and there, maybe 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I had this idea, thinking maybe there's going to be me and a couple other dudes. And it just turned into, you know, like, I mean, I had a potluck here in Hosmer, right?
Hosmer, yeah.
Hosmer. And it was, you know, what, 20, 30, maybe even more people there with their families and their kids. And, you know, I was just putting out the call for assistance, people opening their homes to us, or arranging for us to stay in some place like, you know, a town hall or a church basement or this place, you know, like, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm frequently speechless, and I have to be careful how much I say about it, because I started, like, I'm not an emotional person, but here I am. I'm like, you know, all the time now. And it's in a good way.
Yeah. You said that you're bringing stories and a message to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
You pretty much hit on a lot of the bases already without many questions, but do you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Like, so for the it's the personal accounts. I remember distinctly one night, and I had been absolutely miserable, lying in bed, thinking about, you know, the restrictions and the mandates and all these requirements to be employed, and the way that I personally was affected. And I had been looking into and listening to other people, you know, through podcasts, interviews, stuff like that. I'm thinking that the folks who had implemented all of this are clueless as to how much damage has been done in people's lives. You know, they've lost jobs, they've lost businesses, their families are divided, relationships, all that stuff. Like, I mean, it's just, so there's that. And then, sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, you said you're bringing stories and a message.
Yeah, well, the message is to remind the members of Parliament who they are employed by. As I understand, this is a democracy. They're voted in, and they represent people in their geographical area. There's a riding. I don't think they're responsive to their voters. For example, my Conservative MP in the municipality of Hope, I wrote to him describing my situation. What was his response? He responded to me. Good on him, I guess. However, the content of the message was to tell me how he had made several comments in the House of Commons, and he tweeted about, you know, the harmfulness of the mandates. Really? Okay, so, you know, how about a bit more?
Yeah, and so it is a contentious issue, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's split. You know, there's a balance on both sides, all to say, and certainly a lot of support, certainly a lot of skepticism as well of the Freedom Convoy and things like this. So, what would you say to the more skeptical side, who see this and think it's not a Freedom Convoy situation, and they might have a fear of COVID or might have been hurt by COVID in some way? So, what would you say to those people?
If they're skeptical about what I'm doing, or they're skeptical about, you know, why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, just I suppose the whole kind of you know, Freedom Convoy side of the argument that says that, you know, mandates are tyrannical and that we've been hurt by it, and then people come in and say, well, mandates were necessary because we had this pandemic, whatever. What do you say? What do you say to those people that just have a general skepticism?
Yeah, I would ask them, you know, to look carefully at the information that is available to them. Look at the information they're presented with. Ask them where it came from, and ask them to do some simple things like, There's a couple of ways that we can do comparisons here, and one's very easy. Okay, so for example, what were the results of all of these measures, for example, in the province of British Columbia, which has a population of approximately 5 million? what was the overall result? Job loss, unemployment, skyrocketing drug overdoses, suicides through the roof. Let's compare that to a similar demographic in another country, like Sweden. So you have 5 million in this province, 5 million in Sweden. Little to no mandates. And how are they doing? Pretty good, as I understand it. Minimal effects of things like masking, social distancing. This divide that has been introduced in this country right here and now it's almost beyond repair. It's almost beyond repair. So I would ask them to look at that. Like, look at the divide that we have now between the kind of those folks who are skeptical of what the freedom, the truckers movement and the Freedom Convoy. Like, so look at where we're at through the introduction of all of this. And it's that easy. You can do a comparison of a similar area.
Hmm. You mentioned some things that were a little bit critical of how the Freedom Convoy did their thing a little bit. Right. You don't have to go too deep into that, obviously, if you don't want it, but any comments on that?
Critical in what way?
You mentioned the Team of the Fallen Soldier and just making a lot of noise and things like this. Like, how much is this in solidarity with that? And do you, what did they say there?
Well, number one, I'm skeptical of the way that the whole issue was reported on. It seemed to be reported on in such a way as to deliberately paint that whole effort in a negative way. So I'm no stranger to the way that media is. There's a requirement to truncate headlines, right? There's a requirement to get as much information as small a space as possible with as few as words. But it was unmistakable the negative way that whole thing was portrayed. What was the reality on the ground? I don't know, because I'm hearing other reportings where there was minimal or the efforts were made to minimize the obstruction as much as possible. So with regards to the noise, was there noise being made? I don't doubt it. That was the point of it, right? I mean, and what was the response of the federal government? There was zero effort to make any kind of an effort to reach out and say, okay, let's have a conversation.
And what about the kind of blocking of economic side of things for the Freedom Convoy?
Well, again, this is an attempt by let's put it this way, if we did not have the trucking industry transporting everything that we have across the country, we would have nothing. So how much worse could it have been, right? So if they're blocking a border crossing to get the attention of officials and have that conversation, why were they not able to at least entertain some kind of dialogue?
Okay. We're moving to the end here, and again, I appreciate your time. You've come a long way again. You have a long way left to go. This is quite an act, all to say. You're walking across the country, which is a large country, and so I guess
it's also a beautiful country.
I drove across it from Nova Scotia. I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, just I guess two parts. I guess what are your thoughts looking forward at how much there is left to go, and just comments on it is quite a large act. So comments on making such an action.
I'm anticipating there was a lot of. Okay, so I still have 3,400 kilometers, give or take, to go. However, I really didn't expect anybody to really wake up and take notice until I got to 1,000 kilometers, until I crossed through those mountains. And we were almost on the other end. I'm not saying it's all downhill from here, so to speak, but it is a lot straighter. The roads are a lot straighter. From the difference in the attitudes that I've just seen, like from Vancouver to here, is remarkable. And I'm expecting, and I'm hearing more from different organizers of different events who are interested in having us attend, right? So I think that there's going to be more support along the way. I don't doubt that there's going to be dry spells because we're still going along the prairies and everything else, right? But it's just the act itself is one of it's a bunch of things. It's a demonstration of willpower. It's a demonstration of leadership in a way that the leadership that we were shown from the federal government level was, not that stellar, right? So there was a demonstration of leading by example, leading from the front. I was pretty conflicted about collecting donations at the beginning because I had imagined this was going to be a one-man show, but it's turned out to be 9 of us now. With, again, the kind of support that we're getting, like I entered into a kind of private contract where I'm paying by an installment plan, like for an RV. So there's donations going to fuel that thing up and pay it off. So this is and in doing so, I invite anybody who is in questioning of if they're donating us money and they want to know how this money is being used, they are more than free to come and ask me about it. I will show them everything that we have, every receipt. So that's another example it's another way of leading by example, right?
Okay. Anything else you want to say? Information I missed? Or any more comments you want to make?
No, I guess I would just say from this end, thanks to all the fellows who came with me this far. We've turned into quite a little family here. And I hope you can get their names and include them with your article. Thanks to everybody who I have met along the way who has offered us encouragement and arranged things like potluck dinners and stuff like that. There's just I don't have the words. It's indescribable. This is the type of generosity and you just don't see it. I will say that I am unbelievably lucky to be experiencing this. It's grueling, it's exhausting, but at the end of the day, every day it's almost like it's like you want to race. You know what I mean?
Think you'll ever make it to that place in the forest?
I doubt it. Not for a while.
Right. Okay. Well, let's leave it there then.
Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.